What is going on, y'all? Welcome to the Mission Ready Men briefing right here on the SHR Media Network, where we are training up warriors, not weaklings. Today is Tuesday, September 30th. I can't believe it is just about October in the year of our Lord 2025. And this is where we can come to get equipped to stand firm, speak truth, and fight back against a culture that is trying to steal your faith, your family, and your freedom. Because the battle that we are in is not just political. If it's never been obvious before, it should be now that it is a spiritual battle, and this battle is always raging. So we're done pulling punches. We are done pulling punches. The gloves are off, and we are getting after it. So be sure to follow us at Mission Ready Men on all the socials: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Truth Social, TikTok, and be sure to subscribe to our Rumble and YouTube channels. And if you want to show them that you are in this fight, grab your gear at missionreadymen.com, click Shop 7 Armors, and check out all of the great designs that we have going on over there. All right. Business is out of the way. Let's get after it. All right. I have to talk about another sad story. This time there was a shooting at a church in Michigan, and there were fatalities, and it was just a horrific scene. In 2025, in America, Christianity is, as I have often said, under attack. In Grand Blanc Township, an LDS church was attacked. The perpetrator drove his vehicle into a building, got out, opened fire, and set the sanctuary on fire with an IED. There are 4 confirmed dead, 8 injured, and more unaccounted for. The last update I saw. The shooter, identified as Thomas Jacob Sanford, Marine veteran. He was engaged by the police and neutralized within 8 minutes of this attack. So, I mean, the police get all the credit for shutting that down, because that could have been a lot worse. He had more IEDs with him. That could have been even more catastrophic than it was. This was a brutal attack. Gunfire and arson. This is just another indication of the cultural hostility against Christians that is escalating into physical violence. And you can see it by the way that attacks on Christians are framed versus attacks on other religious and other protected groups. I mean, think about whether or not, if this had been a mosque, CNN would be holding vigils, on-air vigils. But because it's Christians, minimal coverage, if not outright silence, buried headlines, very little to say. Now, I know that somebody is going to come at me and say that LDS is not a Bible-believing Christian church. And that's true. I acknowledge that. However, they identify themselves as Christians, and the public at large, people who are not Christians in the same traditional sense, who are not involved in the Catholic Church or other Bible-believing Christian denominations, will lump the LDS Church in with every other Christian denomination. And the compassion that we show for these families, the children whose lives, the children and other victims whose lives were lost, theology aside, they all deserve our prayer and compassion. And yes, BZ, thank you for bringing that up. BZ is in the chat. Thank you for being here, BZ. Not to mention, he says, not to mention the killings in Africa of Christians. Absolutely. I was going to get to that because Christians in Nigeria have been slaughtered, and not just Nigeria, all over Africa have been slaughtered by Muslims. Boko Haram is the biggest one, but all of these Islamic terrorist organizations are killing Christians in Africa. Christianity is under attack all over the world. But when it comes to getting back to the shooting, when it comes to this, the theological differences we have aside, when it comes to the doctrine, it doesn't matter at all. Not at all when a madman opens fire and sets fire to a sanctuary. Doesn't matter at all. He killed innocent people, and that is to be condemned regardless. And I'm not going to not have compassion for these people because they don't believe the same way I do. I mean, that's beyond silly. That would be evil. That would be straight out evil. They deserve prayer and compassion just like anyone else. And as much as it pains me to say, if someone had rammed their vehicle into a mosque and done the same thing, I would say the same thing. I would pray that the victims came to Jesus, rejected Islam, pray for the families of the victims. But I'm not gonna celebrate that because they happen to hate me. That is not what Christians are called to do. So it doesn't matter. Evil is evil, and we're going to call it out. This is something that's got to stop. This has just got to stop. And this is the scene that fateful day. I mean, that's just pure evil. And we still have victims unaccounted for. There were people suffering, burning alive in that horrific scene. Just tragic. Now, we know, or we believe at this point, that the perpetrator we believe that the perpetrator had some sort of anti-Mormon bias. It has been reported that he spent some time in Utah and had a Mormon girlfriend. I know the LDS community doesn't like being called Mormons, but as a shorthand, that's what I'm gonna do for it at this point. But he said that the community treated him terribly, and he ended up breaking up with that woman, moving to Michigan, and upon seeing the LDS or Mormon community make inroads in Michigan, he just snapped, apparently, if these reports are accurate. He told a political candidate that he hated the people of Mormon faith. It was Burton City Council candidate Chris Johns who told the Detroit Free Press, that when he saw his picture, he realized that he had been in a conversation with the suspect. He was doing canvassing, knocked on his door, and he told someone on CNN, I'm not going to play the video, told him that he realized that he had a negative reaction to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And he began asking questions about the leaders and the history and everything. And he expressed his displeasure that the Mormon Bible has additional books than your traditional Bible. And then he told this guy that the Mormons are the Antichrist. So if this guy is to be believed, and we have really no reason to suspect that he's lying, then there was some serious hatred of the Mormon Church. And then he's had family post some things suggesting that he was unstable, and that emotional instability fueled the ferocity with which he carried out this attack. Very sad. The media seems to be, as I said, largely silent on the faith element. Just another mass shooting, another opportunity for them to rail against guns and do everything they can to try and confiscate guns and infringe on your rights. And we're going to get into some of that later on if we have time. But if this had been, like I said, a mosque, or if this had been some other protected group that had been under attack, there would be wall-to-wall coverage. Wall-to-wall coverage. You and I both know that. But because it's Christians, whatevs. No big deal. They deserve it. You know that there is an element of the American Pravda and the left that thinks that. If you don't think that, you're not paying attention. Churches get vandalized all the time. Nothing. People mock the Bible. Believers are labeled as bigots and haters. But that's no big deal when the violence visits on Christians. So we're going to pray for the victims, pray for the families, pray for the family of the shooter, because they're dealing with unimaginable pain as well, because he is deceased and he did carry out this attack. And we need to be vigilant. If you go to a church that doesn't have security, and I know that the police dealt with this within minutes, and that's great. As I said, they deserve all the credit for that. But if you go to a church that doesn't have a security team, the church that I attended before we in Texas before we moved to Arkansas had a security team. I was on that security team. They need, especially now, churches need to have their own security team and not just pay for a police or sheriff's deputy detail. I mean, a team of people in the sanctuary, in the parking lot, in the lobby, watching out for these threats and able to respond instantly, not 8 minutes later. And 8 minutes in the grand scheme of things is pretty good for a police department, but still, Christians need to be vigilant and aware and ready to deal with these threats, because they're coming. They're coming. But having said all that, they can burn the building. They can try to hurt the parishioners. They can try to hurt the faithful, but they can't burn the kingdom. They can't burn the church of Jesus Christ. It's not brick and mortar. The church of the Father it runs on truth, and it is the people. So just we need to be prayerful. Pray for the victims of this tragedy, and pray for the country, that we can pull out of this nosedive that we're in. Because the alternative is not pretty. All right, I want to let's take a look at some of these chats. Good morning, Sean. Glad to see you here. BZ says he acknowledges that I'm a much better man, and well, I'll pray for you, BZ. Forgiving is not easy, but that's what we're commanded to do. So there is that. All right. I want to talk about something that happened last week, and it's kind of gotten pushed to the back a little bit. But James Comey was indicted. The guy who turned the FBI into a circus tent back in 2016 has now been charged in federal court. They tried to level 3 charges against him. 1 got rejected. 2 stuck. The first one, false statements to Congress. And the other charge that was rejected was another false statement to Congress, but for whatever reason, it didn't fly. It had to do with a question Lindsey Graham asked him. But he lied allegedly about never authorizing FBI leaks. And as a result of that, the DOJ charged him with obstruction of Congress, saying that his statement corruptly impeded oversight. This is, I'm glad he got indicted. I wish the charges were a little beefier, and we're going to get into that. in a second. But there's some controversy around it. The U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan has no prosecutorial experience, and she is leading the case. That's causing people some consternation. I get it. Former Deputy Director Andy McCabe says that he was not aware of Comey ever authorizing leaks, which undercuts the DOJ's central claim. But he's a liar. He's a known liar, a proven liar. So who knows? That's what this process is hopefully going to hash out. We'll see. But there are, just as predictable as it is, the left has been all over this, pointing to Lindsay Halligan and saying that it's lawfare and this, that, and the other. There are some skeptics on the right who are saying, not coming at it from the lawfare angle, but just saying that it's kind of a thin case. Andy McCarthy said that it is flimsy and doomed. Greg Jarrett, and these are people whose legal analysis I tend to respect. Andy McCarthy has been falling off a little bit for me over the past few years, but Greg Jarrett has been on point, and John Solomon and Ben Shapiro called this shockingly emaciated. Greg Jarrett says that the lies are obvious, but it's a paper thin indictment. I mean, I read the indictment. The indictment is a page and a half long. It is pretty thin. But some people are cheering it, saying tit for tat, turnabout's fair play. They prosecuted Trump to no end for years, and so this is a drop in the bucket compared to what he went through and his team went through. I mean, they prosecuted so many people in the Trump orbit up to now, so there may be some element of retribution to it. But you know what? These are the rules that they set. They're mad now because Republicans are playing by the rules that they wrote, and now they don't like it. But of course, the left is all over this. Amy Klobuchar had this to say on Face the Nation.
I see this as a former prosecutor myself. This is weaponizing the Justice Department, basically taking a career prosecutor who was recommended by the Republican governor of the state of Virginia, clearly has Republican roots, who made a decision based on the evidence over a period of months, made a decision. Then he's pushed out, forced out, so that the president can install his own aide into the job. When I questioned Attorney General Bondi during her confirmation hearing, she assured me that politics would not play a role, that they would make independent decisions. That is not what this is. This is a vengeance prosecution. It is not about the law.
Whatever, Amy. I don't care what you have to say. He lied. They have evidence that he lied, and we will see what happens in court. I mean, and maybe some people who say that the process is the punishment is what's going on here. I don't know. I'm not in Trump's mind, but you know as well as I do that the slightest hint of any impropriety whatsoever would get indicted and investigated by a leftist administration. You know it, and I know it. So let's not pretend otherwise. And so the fact that there is something there, whether it's thin or not, the fact that there is something there, investigate it. And as Comey said, let's have a trial. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that BZ is saying, "Oh, shut up" to Amy Klobuchar. Oh boy. But yeah, I just wish all of them would shut up, honestly. And you're right. It isn't politics if he actually lied to Congress. And I believe he did. I believe he did. So we got that. And so whether or not this is retaliatory, to me is largely irrelevant. We have they went after him, they went after his family, they went after the people in his orbit. They went after conservatives at large just because. And not just in the Biden administration, but in the Obama administration as well. But AG Bondi, she's come up with this weaponization working group, which is designed to probe politicized prosecutions, and they're looking into the Jack Smith cases. They're looking into Twinkies Bragg and Big Tish James. They're looking at the January 6th prosecutions, FBI Catholic memo, abortion protest cases. They're looking at all of it. They're looking at all of it. And good, because it is obvious throughout all of those cases that they were just looking to target conservatives. Obvious. I mean, there were people caught up in the January 6th dragnet who all they did was walk through the Capitol, waved through by the Capitol Police, and spent months, if not years, in the dungeon that they call prison in the Capitol. So, and I think some people are still there, barely able to talk to their lawyers, haven't seen their families in all this time. Well, no, they're not there. That President Trump let them go. But regardless, they were there for a long, long time. So if they can't be charged, according to Ed Martin, he's going to name them. And good. I mean, we know some of their names, obviously, like Twinkies and Tish. We know. I mean, she ran a campaign based on prosecuting Trump. Didn't say anything about keeping New York safe, just getting Trump. Which is why I think New York is going to fall, because people voted for that. Well, I mean, and we're going to get into that a little later as well. When you look at this compared to the exactly, how many cases and investigations against and into leftists were squashed because they were leftists? Well, who knows? Hopefully they'll find that out. But when you look at this DOJ as compared to the bribing DOJ, well, you know what? We don't even have to go that far. We can just look back to last week when Google and YouTube admitted that they had been approached by the DOJ to censor conservatives. I mean, they weaponized their administration against conservatives and barely tried to hide it. And so if President Trump and Bondi's DOJ are going after leftists for actual crimes, and see, that's the other distinction we have to look at. The crimes that they claimed these conservatives committed were not crimes. They were looking at people trying to find a crime. Whereas we actually have evidence that these people have committed crimes and are going to be held accountable for it. That's the difference. That is the difference. And so they'll try to say that Trump is directing prosecutions and purging people who are not loyal and won't do his bidding, overtly indicting people for in retribution for what was done to him. Okay. As I said, these are the rules that you created, and we're just playing by them now. If you don't like it, you shouldn't have done it. But now here we are. So deal with it. I think we're going to be dealing with the DOJ being seen as a partisan weapon, regardless of who's in charge for the foreseeable future, unfortunately, at least as long as Trump is in office. Hopefully, we can get Vance in there for another 8 years, and he can try to calm this down. But for now, I think this is what we're dealing with. And if for some strange reason a leftist ends up in the White House in 2028, yeah, this is going to keep going. But I don't believe that's going to happen. I believe we're going to get at least 4 years of Vance, but that's a whole different story. All right. Funny how the Swalwell case wasn't mentioned. Yeah. And I don't really have time to get into that, but that is interesting. But I do want to get into something else before we get a word in from our sponsor. And this is another evergreen topic that we deal with pretty regularly here, and that is the violence that we're seeing from the left. And not leaving aside the shooting in Michigan, that doesn't seem like it was politically motivated in any way, despite all the left's attempts to make it so. That just seems like somebody who was unhinged and lashed out. But the left is, in fact, violent, and they're admitting it. There was an article in the Atlantic, and I think Axios and a few other leftist outlets are publishing this study showing that left-wing violence is on the rise. And in 2025, there have been more left-wing attacks than right-wing. All you have to do is pay attention and you can see that. But if you're only watching MSDNC and the Communist News Network, you wouldn't know that. But they tell us that the right are the violent ones. Meanwhile, leftists are punching pro-lifers, storming ICE facilities, ambushing Trump officials in bathrooms. That happened at the UN last week. And murdering conservatives in the streets. But yeah, grandma waving a flag in the Capitol is somehow a real threat. These people are ridiculous. So we're gonna get into this. One of the most recent things that happened, and we talked about this when it happened. Savannah Craven, she was assaulted. She was doing a man on the street interview. She was assaulted by this person that she was interviewing. She was talking to this person about abortion, and then all of a sudden, she just got clocked. And it turns out that those charges have been dropped. The perpetrator was arrested and the charges have been dropped.
On April 3rd, 2025, I, Savannah Craven Entau, was brutally assaulted in the streets of Harlem while conducting interviews on Planned Parenthood. The entire shocking interaction was caught on camera by my husband, leaving no doubt that the assailant, Breonna J. Rivers, was not only guilty of aggravated assault, but also exulting over her own vicious criminal act. Rivers was arrested and reportedly charged with felony assault. But after an interview with 2 prosecutors, I was informed that the felony had been downgraded to a misdemeanor. Despite indisputable video evidence of brutal assault and battery, producing significant injury, trauma, and resulting in over $3,000 in medical bills. Over the next few weeks, the Office of the New York District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, infamous for its 2-tiered system of justice that favors criminals over victims, failed to pursue the case. On July 23rd, 2025, I find out the prosecution simply allowed this misdemeanor to be dismissed on speedy trial grounds, apparently due to the prosecution's failure to file a certificate of readiness. I was never advised by the prosecution that my case had essentially been abandoned.
So she goes on to talk about how the attorney on the case was a law school graduate who hadn't yet passed the bar, and who knows what went on with that. But apparently, punching a pro-life person, a conservative, is less criminal than jaywalking in New York City. And then you have Chicago ICE protests. They block detainee buses, clash with police. And here's another incident in outside the city of Chicago.
You can see this federal vehicle, this government vehicle, attempting to get into this facility, and this is what has been happening. So we're going to walk a little bit closer. Come on, let's go this way. We're going to get a little bit closer here so we can see what's going on. We have another vehicle coming out right here. Watch out for this. So this vehicle is leaving right now without, and now they've just popped a tire. So you can see this, they just slashed this tire right here of this government vehicle. You've got these guys up on the roof that have pepper ball launchers. This is going to be deployed. They've got that tire slashed here.
I'm having a hard time understanding why they didn't deploy those pepper balls into that. I know it's not a huge crowd, but regardless, they are impeding federal agents from doing their job. I don't know why they didn't deploy the pepper balls. I don't know why there weren't agents out there locking these people up. And this is happening all at all kinds of ICE facilities in Chicago and other areas. BZ says, according to on the Savannah Craven case, she can ask to refile, but Bragg's office won't. Well, yeah. Yes, BZ, there must be consequences. There must be. There absolutely must be. And as I said, there was a Trump official that was ambushed in the bathroom at the UN. And then there's this. And you may or may not remember this. I've talked about it. But let's take a look at this, and you'll know exactly what I mean.
I love it when I hear revving engines. Not really, it kind of scares me.
That was the murder of Aaron Danielson. We got a Trumper here. Bang, bang. And when you look at leftist violence, that case is not counted. I've talked about this before. That case is not counted as leftist violence. So whenever you hear these people talk about how the right is more violent than the left, if you can't trust the numbers, why would you even entertain that notion? It's insane. He was shot dead by an Antifa activist. But Antifa's just an idea. Of course, these ideas keep pulling triggers and slashing tires, but hey, what do I know? And you have the Waukesha Christmas parade where some guy plowed into a crowd. You have the George Floyd riots, the Freddie Gray riots, the Jacob Blake riots, the murder of Aaron Danielson, as we just talked about, the entire summer of love, firebombing federal buildings, the burning of St. John's Church, Ferguson, the 3 scumbags who tried to kill Kyle Rittenhouse, the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, the attack that nearly killed Steve Scalise, the attacks on Rand Paul, Tim Pool, Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, Ann Coulter, and the list just goes on. And of course, the actual assassination of Charlie Kirk. But tell me again how the right is more violent. If you have eyes and 2 firing neurons, you know that that's a lie. You know that's a lie. And they're now, as I alluded to earlier, starting to admit it. The Atlantic and a few other outlets published a report citing data that shows that prior to 2016, left-wing incidents were less than 1 a year. And then in 2016, and what happened in 2016? But in 2016, it was over 4 a year. And we've already established that they don't accurately report it when it's a left-wing violent attack, so that it could be 8. Who knows what the actual number is? But in 2025, for the first time in 30 years, and 2025 isn't over yet, but for the first time in 30 years, left-wing incidents outnumber right-wing ones. Let's take a look at this so you can see a visual representation of this. From 95 to 2016, and all of a sudden, that number skyrockets. And you're seeing the number of right-wing incidents fall. And again, we have no idea if this is even accurate, because they underreport the incidents as political violence. The graphs, even if we don't think that they're completely accurate, they're not. They're definitely indicative of what we can actually see with our own eyes. So what happened in 2016? Well, President Trump got elected. Resist morphed into riot. In 2020, we had BLM and Antifa, where violence became justice. Bragg, as we talked about earlier, drops charges on leftists and violent criminals, while January 6ers rot in prison. If you prosecute one side and drop charges on another, of course, the numbers are going to look lopsided. And one thing that they do is they when it comes to these types of incidents, they tend to focus on fatalities. And that comes down to target choice. The left, they tend to target property and individuals as opposed to mass casualty attacks, or at least that used to be the case. I think that's now changing as well. And then we have the fact that Antifa, despite them saying that it's not organized, they are decentralized. They're organized, but they're also decentralized, as opposed to militias who tend to be very organized. And this is remember all this stuff about punching a Nazi. What's happening on the left is the natural progression of that. It's the natural progression, and it turns deadly when it escalates. Aaron Danielson, Waukesha, and the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the attempts on President Trump's life. The fact that they don't have the highest number of fatalities doesn't mean that it's any less dangerous to deal with these people. As like saying a rattlesnake bite is just fine if only your arm swells. It's ridiculous. Right wing may be, well, you can't even really say that right wing violence is more deadly, because as we've established, we really don't know the numbers because they're not reported accurately. And they're not reported accurately on purpose. But they're gaslighting us. They're trying to gaslight us. The left violence is a protest, but right violence is an insurrection. The 2020 riots were mostly peaceful, but January 6th was the worst attack on our capital in the country's history. So we need to just go ahead and let go of this myth that the right owns the political violence in this country. The left has gotten so out of control that they can't really hide it anymore, which is what they were doing. They were hiding the left-wing violence, and it's gotten to the point where they can't anymore. The media can't run cover for them like they used to. So the left is dangerous. Stay ready, stay faithful, and do not let the propagandists in the American propaganda shame you into silence. Let's take a look at some of these chats. I got on a roll and kind of yes, law enforcement will never possess superior numbers. And yet the insanity is so inculcated into our current politics and climate that it isn't possible that Democrats take 2026 midterms because of the numbers they can possibly generate. Yeah, you're probably right. All right, y'all, let's, wow, I went almost an hour before going on a break, huh? Oops. But yeah, let's get a word in from our sponsor. And our sponsor today is Carry Girl Gear. We got some new designs. Esther's Rising, the revival generation. It's since the Kirk assassination, seems to be we're on a bit of a revival. I'm praying that it's a revival and not just an emotional response like what happened with on 9/11. We saw how quickly that faded. And I'm praying that that's not the case this time. I don't believe it is. But if you're looking for a solid, awesome gift for your wife or your girlfriend, check out carrygirl.com. We got Esther's Rising, the Revival Generation, and we got the Kingdom Kids collection, although it's not showing up here for some reason. There we go. We got the Kingdom Kids collection for your kiddos. These are some of the best looking, highest quality shirts, sweatshirts, t-shirts, hats, all kinds of gear that are great designs, great fabric, and stuff that she and your children will actually want to wear. Drinkware, hats, accessories, a whole lineup of stuff that she will absolutely love. And go ahead and get yourself a gift certificate so that she can buy the gear that she actually will like, and you will look like a hero, and she'll get to pick out everything herself. It's quick, it's easy, she'll get exactly what she wants. So head over to carrygirl.com, show some love and make it count. Visit carrygirl.com today. All right, y'all, I am Big E, and you are watching or listening to the Mission Ready Men briefing on the SHR Media Network, where you can catch all kinds of great shows like my friend Sackhead Sean with The Edge of Liberty every Monday and Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. The Reaver of Common Sense with Jersey Joe every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. Pacific. And BZ, who's in the chat with us, thanks for being here, BZ, with the Berserk Bobcat Saloon every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. Be sure to like and subscribe to those great shows. Share those shows so that we can get the word out. Pray for us that we have a huge breakthrough this year. We're getting there. We're working on it. but we want to reach as many people as we possibly can. So like, subscribe, share, and let's let everyone know what we got going on over here. And and B is in the chat. CGG is awesome, and I hear the owner is amazing. Well, the owner is amazing. Oh, that's awesome. All right, now back to our regularly scheduled programming. And I got a lot more I want to get to. So let's see if we can motor through this. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. We haven't done a whole lot on the Second Amendment, and this one really isn't about that per se, because this is, I'm about to talk about Canada and their ridiculous scheme to confiscate their citizens' firearms. They have this scheme coming up that is a voluntary surrender of firearms, a voluntary surrender of military style firearms. And what they really mean rather than voluntary surrender is that you better hand it over and take this little chump change that we're going to give you, or you will be a criminal. They say it's voluntary, but try not paying taxes. Taxes are allegedly voluntary. Try not paying them and see what happens. Wesley Snipes found out. It is a bait and switch. Amnesty now, felony later. So they started with assault style rifles, meaning ARs, AKs, but that list of banned firearms has expanded now into pistol caliber carbines, PCCs. And the definition of these military style weapons just keeps increasing. They have added hundreds of new models, and any firearm that some Canadian bureaucrat doesn't like gets added to the list. It's ridiculous. And if a pistol caliber carbine is a weapon of war, then your deer rifle or shotgun is a pen stroke away from being banned. And this is a compensated confiscation. Let's not make any bones about it. They say it's voluntary. They say they're going to compensate you, but it's a confiscation. And think about this: if you paid $1,500 for a mid-level AR, and then you decided to throw on some upgrades for another $750, they will probably cut you a check for somewhere between $500 to $700. And there's leaked audio. I'm not going to play it because it's kind of hard to hear, but there's leaked audio of one of the ministers in charge of this thing admitting that the people who submit are going to take a loss. The people who comply, who bend the knee and turn over these firearms are going to take a loss. They know it. They don't care. And this, just like in the United States, this is going to punish law-abiding citizens. It's going to punish collectors. It's going to punish sport shooters. It's going to punish people who actually hunt for survival. People who actually are in the woods and use these weapons to protect themselves. This is going to punish them. This isn't going to The criminals are looking at this and laughing, because this means absolutely nothing to them. American criminals, Canadian criminals, it does not matter. The gangbangers are not showing up at the RCMP trying to get their check. They're not going to surrender anything. It's not going to happen. Whereas law-abiding citizens, they're going to face this confiscation. They're going to turn their guns in. Who knows how long it's going to take before they get their check. And then if they don't, they're now criminals, and they could be prosecuted at any point once the amnesty period runs out. They can have the RCMP showing up at their door to actually confiscate those guns, and there will be no compensation and possibly arrest. These so-called voluntary schemes, they always end up being mandatory at some point. And that's not just me saying so because I've seen this happen before. It's not just that. They tell you that. Nationwide declaration period. This is from a Canadian publication. Individual firearms owners will be informed that the program is open and can express their interest in participating in the program by creating an account, blah, 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 blah. Firearms owners must submit a declaration to be considered for the program. Those who do not participate in the declaration period will not be able to seek compensation. And submitting a declaration does not guarantee compensation either. Then there's that. Wow. Participating in the program is voluntary. However, individual firearm owners must dispose of or permanently deactivate their assault-style rifle by the end of the amnesty period, or risk criminal liability for the illegal possession of a prohibited firearm. They're coming right out and telling you, yeah, if you don't comply, you will be a criminal. This is they're not trying to buy your guns back, because they never owned them. They never owned them. They're stealing your property and giving you a coupon. This is not about safety. Never has been. Never has been. This is about control. This isn't true, real public safety comes from punishing criminals. Period. End of story. You cannot achieve public safety by gutting the rights of your citizens and emptying their wallets. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. If you want public safety, lock criminals up. It's that easy. It's that easy. But they don't want to do it. All right. I don't know if you can hear that. My dogs are going nuts. Something got delivered. Gotta love them. All right. I want to talk about New York and Eric Adams has dropped out of the mayoral race. His announcement he did on social media was interesting, to say the least. He walked down the stairs at Gracie Mansion, put a picture of his mother on the stairs next to him. Okay. You know what? I'm not going to bother playing the video. It's typical leftist nonsense. But what happens with him dropping out of the race is that now, not now, because he's always been the leader. And I thought about this for a while. I wasn't sure exactly how this was going to play out, but I've been thinking about it. And Zoran Mamdani, who is the leader in the race right now. I thought maybe in the beginning, Eric Adams dropping out, his support would go to Cuomo, who's marginally better. At least he's not a straight out communist like Mamdani is. But I thought maybe his support would go to Cuomo. But even if all of his support did, which it won't, even if all of his support went to Cuomo, it wouldn't be enough to derail Mamdani's campaign. Mamdani is most likely, barring some fantastic revelation or some revelation of the people of New York who realize they really don't want a communist. He's going to be the mayor of New York. There's going to be an Islamo-Communist mayor of the city of New York. The city that was attacked on 9/11 by Islamic jihadists is going to elect a guy who openly cheers for that ideology and those attackers. I have often asked, have we forgotten? New York apparently has. And they're going to get what they deserve. They are going to get what they deserve. But Adams is well, let's take a look at some of these. This is going back to the confiscation. This is precisely what Australia did in 1996. They asked, then confiscated and punished with prison. Yeah, exactly. But getting back to Adams, he destroyed himself. His scandals, his abysmal approval, couldn't get fundraising, which is something that he cited in his announcement, where he decided he was going to drop out. He did this to himself. I really don't understand. I don't understand New York, because they had it so good. They had it so good under Giuliani. They saw what good governance can do. They watched it go from a complete hellhole to one of the safest cities in the world. Why they wouldn't want to keep that going is beyond me. But yet here we are. And crime got ridiculous under Adams. And I think part of what happened was he realized that he needed to pivot, and he started going against the leftist narrative, especially when it came to illegal immigration. And they made an example of him. And now he's done. And of course, that means that Mamdani Mamdani was always going to win, I think, anyway. But now he is the absolute front runner. The betting markets have him at, I didn't pull that up, but the betting markets have him at, I believe, 85% odds to win. And Cuomo, who was at, I think, 12, is now up to 16. So he didn't get all of Adams' votes because I think, or support, because I think he was at 7%. So Wall Street thinks that New York is about to put Karl Marx and Hamas on the same campaign poster. That's a frightening thought. Now, Zohran Mamdani, he is a socialist, a self-described socialist, but he's a communist. His public statements prove that he is just a communist, period. End of story. He is a vocal supporter of the Free Palestine movement. You know, the chant that murderer made when he killed those two Jewish people outside of those two Israeli embassy workers outside of the Jewish Museum in DC, Free Palestine. Yeah, he supports that. He endorses policies that are economic suicide, rent cancellation, free public transportation. He wants to defund the police, and pretty much any other left-wing lunatic wish list item that you can possibly imagine, he is for. State-run grocery stores, which we just saw fail in St. Louis after a very short period of time. And they failed in every place they've tried. If AOC and Ilhan Omar had a political baby and raised it in a Columbia University seminar, it would be the Islamo-Communist Zohran Mamdani. Because she's the commie, AOC is the commie, and Ilhan Omar is the Islamic jihadist. And that's him. It still blows my mind that New York is about to elect, after the unimaginable damage that was done on that day, that they are about to elect a guy who supports that ideology. Mind-boggling. His dad is a Columbia University professor who is very anti-Israel, excuses violence. His mother is in Hollywood. She's a filmmaker. So he's been raised with all kinds of leftist Islamic ideology. And having him grow up in an anti-Western grievance politics society, this is what you get. Under Mamdani, when he wins, the NYPD is going to get gutted. Crime is going to spike. And New Yorkers, even though all of his rhetoric is saying he wants to help New Yorkers, all of his rhetoric, New Yorkers are going to get the shaft. He supports people who say death to America. And all we have to do is look at what's happening over in the UK. The mayor of London is cut from the same cloth as this guy. And we see what's happening over there. That's the blueprint. New York is going down. And businesses are going to flee. People with resources are going to flee. Small businesses are going to shutter. And New York is going to be, the only thing left is going to be Wall Street. And even those businesses will look at escaping. BZ says, but Earl, you don't know that for a fact. He could change everything. He could be precisely what New York City needs in terms. Why can't I see that? Why am I so harsh and judgmental? I don't know. I got eyes. Mom Donnie could be the guy who makes the stores open and does communism right. Yeah, it's always they didn't do it right. I know. Yeah, this is gonna be bad. This is gonna be bad for New York. It's gonna be bad for the country, because there is a strong likelihood that other big cities run by leftists could follow suit. Or in themselves a whole that it could. If New York City does this, it proves that they have been successful in mainstreaming Islamist apologism and socialism in America's biggest, most famous city. And that will, as I just alluded to, set the stage for more Democrat socialist candidates across the country. That will be bad. That will I mean, we'll be able to overcome it because they will run those cities into the ground and it will turn around eventually, but the people in those cities are going to suffer a lot. – 24 years after 9/11, they could elect a guy who sympathizes with the people who did that. After the fight that they put up to come back from that, they're about to surrender. It's not funny. It's really sad. It's sad, and I pray that they realize the error of their ways. All right, one last quick thing I want to get into. I didn't think I was going to get to it, but there's a couple of other things I do want to get to, which I won't be able to, unfortunately. But I didn't think I was going to get to this one. But going back to the UK, they have, or they are about to implement, mandatory digital IDs. The country that gave us the Magna Carta, that gave us the ideas of personal liberty, are now about to affix their citizens with a digital leash. Starmer's government says that it's about illegal workers, but you and I both know what it is. It's mass surveillance. And yes, I know with smartphones, with all the government apparatus that's out there now, they have a lot of this information already. I get it. Why give them another bite at the apple? Why give them another chance to not only collect all this information, but centralize it? Especially, and I'm not that familiar with the way that the UK does things, so it could already be centralized. I don't know, but I know in this country, if they do something like this, when you have stuff at the NSA and the CIA and the FBI and and your local police departments and all that, in this country, it could end up in one centralized database, and the databases that they already have are more than too much. But there are voices of reason. There are voices of reason over there. And Nigel Farage had this to say.
We have not had ID cards in this country for over 70 years. We had them briefly during wartime Britain, but in the end it was decided they weren't doing any good at all and we got rid of them. But they're to come back, but now in a digital form. And of course the high priest for all of this for the last quarter of a century has been Tony Blair. Here he was just recently reiterating the call.
The benefits are clear. Digital ID will make our interactions with each other and with the state faster, cheaper, and more reliable. It will allow us to judge who has a right to be in our country and who doesn't, and so solves one of the major challenges of immigration.
The benefits are clear. The state can control every single aspect of your life. They can know where you are at any given moment in time. They can see what money goes in and out of your accounts. They can decide, oh, no. You can't go to Marbella. You've used up your carbon credit for the year. Now, you might say I'm exaggerating, but these are the endless possibilities that could happen with digital ID. And frankly, for me, I saw enough during the pandemic with vaccine passports. It created a two-tier society of those who could go to places, those who could travel, all based on the fact that unless you were vaxxed, you see, unless you were vaxxed, you were a danger because you might pass the virus on to somebody else. Then we learned that simply wasn't true, and yet our freedoms have been taken away for that period of time in a way that had never happened before. I am personally vehemently opposed to this in every single way, let alone the abuse that could happen if any of these sites are hacked and your data is taken. But hey, we're told it'll stop illegal immigration. It'll stop people crossing the channel. It'll stop people working in the illegal economy. I, for my own side, don't believe a word of it.
Neither do I. Neither do I. That's right, Sean, it is. It's all about control. Always. Everything about them is always about control. And we talked about this. We dealt with this when there was the thought that they might come up with a digital currency. Same thing. They could control every aspect of your life. They could control what you could spend your money on. If there was a digital currency and you wanted to buy a firearm, they could say, no. You can't do that. And this digital ID could pave the way for that. It could absolutely pave the way for that. Because these government schemes always end up with mission creep. Today it's immigration and whether or not you can work. Tomorrow, like I said, banking, healthcare. They can determine whether or not you're eligible to get certain to get certain treatment, voting. I mean, the possibilities of government overreach on this are endless. And of course, real people oppose this. People, like I said, with eyes and a couple of firing neurons understand how dangerous this could be. So when it happens over there, it's only a matter of time before it happens over here. Just like up in Canada. You think this isn't going to embolden people to try and come up with another way to confiscate our firearms like they're doing up there? Of course. And this digital ID madness, somebody, I guarantee you, somebody within the next 6 months to a year is going to propose something like this. That the hacking that could happen, just the mission creep, the overreach, it's the possibilities of what they could try with this are endless. They will be able to control every aspect of your life, which is exactly what they're after. All right. That's it. I think that's all we got this time. I wanted to get into the whole Tylenol thing, but I don't really have time. So that's all I got for you this time. I will keep trying to make each show better than the last one. And if anything that I said hits home for you, please take a second to like and subscribe and share it with everyone that you know, because we want to spread the word. We want to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and carry the banner of faith, freedom, and hope for future generations. And if you want some cool gear, head over to missionreadymen.com, click Shop 7 Armors, and check out all the great designs that we have over there about bold faith, true grit, and unapologetic patriotism. And as always, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away, but the Lord is right there with you. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.